The closer you get to the light, the greater your shadow becomes. Kingdom Hearts. Why is it every time that we take steps towards improving our life, whether it's small things like improving our daily habits, or whether it's bigger things like changing our career direction or following our life's calling, there always seems to be an opposing force trying to pull us down, trying to stop us from moving forward in life, to stop us from reaching our higher self? Why is it, in the words of Steven Pressfield, that as powerful is our soul's call to realization, so potent are the forces of resistance arrayed against it? Now, for years I've struggled with this in my life. For instance, every time it's January 1st, I would come up with a list of all my new habits and changes, and within a few couple weeks I would revert back to my old self. And the reason why I would always fall back to my old ways was because I didn't understand this opposing force. I didn't understand that there was an enemy, and that the enemy which is holding me back was within. As Sun Tzu says, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, in every battle certain defeat. And so this enemy which holds you back, this is what I call the shadow self. And the first steps we must take to defeating or overcoming the shadow self is to acknowledge it, to understand its presence. As Carl Jung says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And so what exactly is the shadow self? So the shadow self, like I said, is that opposing force. It's that force that opposes your higher self, which wants you to stay where you are, to keep you from moving forward. And now the shadow self has been given many different names throughout the ages, and I believe that the mythological figure of the demon, which has been adopted by many religions, such as Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, this shadow self, this opposing force against growth, is what they mean when they label it as the demon. And in the modern day, one of my favorite authors, his name is Steven Pressfield, and he's the author of this book, The War of Art, and he labels this force, this shadow self, resistance. And he warns that resistance's goal is not to wound or disable. Resistance aims to kill. Its target is the epicenter of our being, our genius, our soul, the unique and priceless gifts we were put on this earth to give, and that no one else has but us. When we fight it, we are in a war to the death. And so what I didn't understand before was that whenever I would take steps towards my higher self and to try and improve my life, that I was entering into a battle, and the battle was internal, it's within. It's a mental battle, it is a psychological battle, it is a spiritual battle. And I think this battle has been perfectly portrayed in films which have been created under the structure of the hero's journey. And we see this in The Last Airbender with Aang, when he meets with the guru to try to understand how to unlock his higher self, his avatar state. And we see that when he meets the guru, it's in a dark cave. And the guru is basically serving like a psychologist or a psychotherapist for Aang. And to do this, he has to delve within the darkness of his subconscious mind to see what's lurking there, the shadow self. And that's a very scary thing to do. And that's why the setting of the cave serves as such a strong symbolism for this. As Joseph Campbell writes, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And in the inner world, Aang meets his shadow self. And what is the shadow self? And the shadow self contains all of the emotions and traits which Aang has repressed within himself. They include things like his fears, his traumas, his guilt, his self-doubt, or whether he's going to be able to defeat the Fire Lord. And all of these things are garnering in his subconscious and form his shadow self. And so now that we've identified that the shadow self lies within the darkness of our subconscious, that it's within us, then how can we defeat it? And, I know the title of my video is How to Defeat the Shadow Self, and I've decided to keep it, but when writing my script, I actually changed my mind on this. And I don't think we should necessarily try to aim to quote-unquote defeat our shadow self, because it is a part of us. And in the way to overcome the shadow self, I don't think we should say we should defeat it. I think the way to overcome it is to understand it and integrate it. And so if we think about the shadow self, all the elements of ourselves that we fear or we repress, if we view it as an entity, this entity is just something that wants to be understood and known. And there's this African proverb which goes, "The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." And I think it's the exact same thing with our shadow self. If we do not take the time to understand it and know it and to integrate it within us, then it's going to try to seek outward expression in a different way. As Carl Jung says, if you do not make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. That's the exact same thing there. It's always going to seek outward expression, and so to overcome it, it's not to defeat it, it's to understand it, and it's to integrate it within us. And that's exactly the journey which Aang took when he met the guru, to integrate the things within himself And this is a quote by Carl Jung, which perfectly summarizes this, which goes, "What if I should discover that the poorest of the beggars and the most impudent of offenders are all within me, and that I stand in need of the arms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy who must be loved, what then?" And so I want to go back to the quote in the beginning of the video where I say that the closer you get to the light, the greater your shadow becomes. And I think this quote can be reframed to be viewed from a different perspective. And the way that I see it is that the more you delve into your subconscious and understand your shadow self and integrate the darker elements in your shadow self, then the closer to the light you become. Now, moving on, I do want to give a tip on how we can go about this in our daily lives. I'll just share what I do. So basically, I look up to these, like I'm like a true weeb, I look up to these animes like Naruto and The Last Airbender, and I see how characters in the movie walk their own hero's journey and solve problems within themselves. And I used to think it was so weird that I got so much inspiration from animes, like something that's not even real. But then I realized a lot of people actually do this. So, bro, like, you know, one of my favorite UFC fighters, his name is Israel Adesanya, and he's had a tough journey, you know, from being bullied in childhood to becoming a UFC champion. And he says that one of the biggest inspirations from him was actually from anime. Like, bro, he's got like a tattoo of Toph on his like forearm, and he's got like the Naruto seal like on his stomach, and he's just full-blown anime dude, and he's a UFC fighter. He got all his inspiration from anime. I think we can really learn from this. We find heroes that we like, whether it's in real life or from fictional stories, and we can take inspiration from it and see how other people have walked the path and do the same. And I guess lastly, I do want to say that, yeah, this journey is going to be a bit scary because, like I said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And for you to reach your higher self, it's going to involve you having to integrate a lot of, like, you know, the darker aspects of yourself, you know, your shadow self, and confronting it can be a very scary thing. And yeah, so the biggest takeaway of the video which I want to share is that just to accept that there is that dark side, the shadow self, and not to fear it, but to understand it and integrate it. And to end this, I want to bring up a quote, and it goes, "Sadness gives depth, happiness gives height. Sadness gives roots, happiness gives branches. Happiness is like a tree going into the sky, and sadness is like the roots going down into the womb of the earth. Both are needed, and the higher a tree goes, the deeper it goes simultaneously. The bigger the tree, the bigger the roots will be. In fact, it is always in proportion. That is balance." Anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you all. And if you got to the end of this video, please leave a peace emoji down below so I know you got to the end. And I do want to share also that I'm in the process of making a Discord community, because I just think it will be pretty cool to have like a community of like-minded people just talking about cool things that, you know, all the things that we talk about in these videos, like, you know, like psychology, spirituality, philosophy, anime, self-improvement, all those sorts of things. So yeah, still in the process, still making it. Yeah, also let me know down in the comments below if you'll be keen to join, and as always, see you in the next video. Peace.